Hi, this is Michael Josephson for the Josephson Institute of Ethics. What I want to talk about now is the real basic introduction of what is business ethics, what is ethics at all, and understanding this in some theoretical framework that's not too academic, but at the same time gives us a structure so that we can use as guidance to when we have to do the really important things, which is to make decisions, because this is really all about making the right decisions. You need to understand that the notion of ethics starts with a more basic term called values. Now, values are not the same as ethics. Values are whatever your core beliefs are. It's a core belief that's so important to you that it motivates your behavior and your attitudes. We have all kinds of values. We certainly have our values as to what we like. If you like ice cream, or if you like baseball, or if you like camping, those are values that you have that are important to you that will often determine what kind of jobs you take and what you do with your leisure time. These values are what we call preference values, or the things that you desire. There's another group of values we all have, and that is our beliefs as to simply what works. We find out that hard work tends to work, that preparation tends to work, that treating people kindly tends to work, in the sense that it's pragmatic, it's practical, it gets the results we want. And so a lot of our values are formed on the basis of what has made our life more successful or effective. And certainly in the notion of business or any kind of management or leadership, we begin to learn what works, how to treat people and how to deal with situations. But the third kind of values is what we call ethical or moral values. Those are the values that tells us what's right, how we should behave, according to some general standards of goodness. Now, for some, those standards come from religion. For others, they just may come from philosophy. For many, we just learned them from our parents, and we didn't know where they came from, except we knew that there is a difference between being a good person and not a good person, to being a nice person and a mean person, to being an honest person or a dishonest person. Now, together, these three sets of values create our own personal value system. The things that we want, the things that we think that works, and the things that we think we should or ought to do. And that's basically our character is formed by those values. Now, when we talk about business ethics, and when we talk about living a good and ethical life, we're talking about how does one pursue the first two sets of values, that is, get the things we want, the things we desire, and the things we know that work, but doing it under the ground rules of an ethical structure, where we know that we're not going to sacrifice ethics in order to get what we want. So under this system of values, you have to understand that ethical values are overarching. They're bigger than. They have to be, at least if you want to be a person of character, the fundamental structure by which you're going to pursue the other beliefs. Now, I don't know what kind of organization you're in, but there's a very good chance it has stated values and a mission statement. And that mission statement is going to tell you what the company or organization is trying to do, and the values are going to tell you what the organization wants you to believe, hopes you do believe. And if they've recruited you right, maybe you already believe, as to ways in which that you can advance the business's interest. Very common language is going to be things like teamwork or innovation or risk-taking, integrity, respect, a whole range of things. And you'll notice in those list of values, you probably have some of the values that are pragmatic values. For instance, innovation is not an ethical value per se. It's a value that says if we're innovative, we're going to be more successful. And therefore, we want us to be innovative. Risk-taking is often part of innovation, because in order to be innovative, you have to take some chances. Those values then, to the extent that they are incorporated in a structure of an organization, are thought to be important because they will lead to the results that the company wants. But you'll also note that your values probably include some ethical values, like words like integrity or trust or honesty or responsibility or caring or compassion. And so what we want to do is to understand that to be an ethical company, to be an ethical person, to be entitled to the claim that I am a person of character, or my company is a company of character, is that all of my actions and decisions are governed by core ethical principles. So then the next challenge is how do we define those ethical principles? Well, I spent a lot of time with that, and I start with a very simple thing. If I'm doing a workshop, I usually hold the picture of my kids, and I'll ask this question. If you get interviewed the people who would date and marry your children, which, by the way, you can't, that's only a myth, but if you really could, it would be a great thing. What are the characteristics that you really hope to have? And I can tell you, I've done it hundreds and hundreds of times, and we tend to identify basic core values of what it is to be a good person, because we all want our kids to be involved with somebody we think is a good person. Almost always, the first thing that comes out of people's mouth is some word or phrase that deals with the notion of trust or trustworthiness. It could be the word honesty, it could be the word integrity, it could be the word sincerity, but one way or another, we are concerned that the person that is going to date or marry our children is someone who can be trusted, who we really know that they will do the right thing. I mean, can you imagine if you were the parent of the wife of Tiger Woods? And to think of how you must have felt in that sense of betrayal. So all of us want trustworthiness. Another factor that you're going to be thinking about is responsibility. You want to be sure that the person who dates and marries your children is responsible. You don't want somebody who says, I can't find a job, and you're saying, yeah, well, did you look? You know, I didn't actually look, but I can't find a job. But here's the problem. Irresponsible people are more fun. They don't have to work tomorrow morning. So as a result, they make great dates and lousy mates. But they also make lousy employees. So we want somebody who's responsible, who's accountable. We also want somebody who's respectful, right? You want somebody who's going to treat your children with respect in meaningful ways all the time. You want somebody who's fair. You can't always say we're going to their side of the family on every holiday, or we always see your movies. We want fairness. You want, of course, primarily caring, loving, compassion, unselfishness, the kind of behavior that you'd hope would make your child very important in the eyes of this other person. And finally, we have a value we call citizenship, which is just you do the right thing. Now together, and you're going to learn a lot more about these if you're going to spend some time with us, and I hope you do in some of our other tapes. These are what we call the 6 pillars of character. Trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship. Trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship. And the idea is that these 6 pillars of character are the matrix for what it is to be a good person. Now before you leave this tape, I know you're thinking, well, that was cute and nice, but what does this have to do with business? I'm not hiring somebody to be the spouse of my children. Well, think about it. Take those 6 and tell me, what do you want from an employee? Which one of those 6 is now important to you when you are hiring somebody or working with them? Is it important to you can trust them? Is it important to you that they treat you and the clients with respect? Is it important to you that they're responsible and self-starters and do what has to be done? Is it important to you that they're fair? Is it important to you that they're caring? Is it important to you that they follow the rules? Of course it is. So these 6 pillars of character ought to be the core of your interviewing. They ought to be the core of your evaluations and the core of your performance reviews. But that's not all. If that's what you want from your employees, what do you think your employees want from their managers? Tell me which of those 6 is unimportant if you're an employee. And while we're at it, if we're using this matrix, tell me what your customers want from you. They want to be sure they can trust you. They want to be sure you treat them with respect. They want to be sure you're responsible, that you're fair, that you really care about them, and that you follow the rules, you're a good citizen. In other words, these 6 pillars of character are those core values, that special group of universal values that apply to all companies in all situations and all people to create the kind of person who will create the kind of company that you all want. Because you know, in the end, character really does count.